In John 8:1, Jesus goes to the Mount of Olives, and then in 8:2, we are told that he comes to the temple early in the morning. This is consistent with what Jesus does in Matthew and Luke. Jesus travels from the Mount of Olives, most likely on the east side of the mountain, in a little place called Bethany, where his good friends Lazarus, Mary, and Martha live. He's about a 30-minute walk from there to the temple. And so it made a nice place for Jesus to go in the evening and then come back to the temple to teach in the morning. In the synoptic accounts in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus is going back there and coming into the city during Holy Week. So in the final week of his life, this was Jesus' pattern. He would come into the temple, teach in the day, and then go back to the Mount of Olives to Bethany in the evening. So it makes sense that we see that happening here. These details point to the fact that this actually happened. In verse 3, the scribes and the Pharisees bring a woman caught in adultery to Jesus. Now, we need to wonder, one, where's the man? And why has this woman been brought to Jesus in this moment? What we see here appears to be a setup, both for the woman and for Jesus. The Pharisees don't necessarily seem to care about justice or the law in this moment. It's more about catching this woman and catching Jesus in a trap. As the trap is set, Jesus bends down and writes in the dirt. Any speculation you've heard in a sermon about what Jesus wrote in the dirt is just that, speculation. We don't know. Scripture leaves a gap. We can maybe take some educated guesses at how to fill that gap, and while it makes for an awesome story that Jesus bent down and wrote the sins of the Pharisees and the scribes in the dirt, we just don't know that. Preachers aren't the only ones that like to speculate on what Jesus might have been reading in the dust. It's just too good of an opportunity to pass up. And as I looked at commentaries on this passage, I saw that it was suggested by a number of commentators that Jesus may have been writing Jeremiah 17 or Exodus 23. It is fascinating to try to fill this gap and speculate about what Jesus wrote. The best thing we can do is leave the gap right there where it was left in Scripture. We sometimes can't fill all of the details. As much as it would make for a great story, we need to take the text at face value and see what is actually there rather than what we want to be there. That can be tough. And then we come to one of the most famous sayings of Jesus. Let him who is without sin cast the first stone. After that one-liner, Jesus goes back to writing in the dirt, and all of a sudden, everybody finds someplace else they have to be. The woman is left with Jesus. Jesus looks up at the woman and says, "Where are your accusers? If they don't condemn you, then neither do I. Go and sin no more. Go and stop a lifestyle of sin." This is such a beautiful portrait of the grace of God in action, and I'm thankful that it's been preserved for us throughout history, even if it doesn't go right here in John chapter 8.